broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of Dodgers Wrap 360 right here on AfterBuzz TV and AfterBuzzTV.com. We are talking obviously the last week in Dodgers baseball, a disastrous week in Dodgers baseball. Before we get into that, a couple cool things for you guys. First off, hit subscribe on YouTube and iTunes if you haven't already. You can keep up with us all year, all next year as we do this. Second, we are all on Twitter. Well, most of us are on Twitter, so if you guys want to tweet us, you can live tweet us there. And third and most importantly, let me introduce my panel. I am Bobby DeMuro. Sitting next to me is Mike Conley, the only guy not on Twitter. Across the table, Kevin John back with us. And our special guest today from DodgersNation.com and the YouTube channel Dishing Up the Dodgers, Miss Stacy Wheeler.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Stacy, first question first. Dodgers go 0-5. We're going to break down the week. We've been getting Twitter questions all day for you, for the panel. And if you're watching this live, if you're on Twitter, you want to tweet us, you can do that. I'm at Bobby DeMuro. First question came through on Twitter. Del Taco or Taco Bell?
I'm definitely a Del Taco kind of girl.
All right, well, Stacy's panel on the show is complete. Thank you so much for joining us, fellas. Let's talk Dodgers. No, Taco Bell.
Oh, no way. Del Taco
really?
all the way.
Taco Bell is actually, you don't know this, but Taco Bell actually uses kangaroo meat. Just food for thought.
Maybe I'm
Tasty
switching.
food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely. It hasn't been quite confirmed, but that's speculation.
I just feel like we're asking a question about, would you rather, to bring it to the Dodgers, would you rather go 0-5 or 0-6 in a week? That's the Del Taco Bell question, right?
Yeah. How about neither?
Was that really offered up on Twitter?
Yeah, that was one of the first questions on Twitter. Was Del Taco or Taco Bell?
And you asked me why I'm not on.
But you can find out a lot about a person when you know whether they choose Del Taco or Taco Bell. Seriously. You can know how healthy they are, what they like to eat, who they like to see, their interests, their music interests, their favorite movie, their favorite color. You can learn all that from that.
I'm horrified. Let's talk baseball now, as fun as Del Taco is. I just had to get that out there. I wanted to let people know we're going to actually answer the Twitter questions. That was one of them.
That's great.
Okay, let's start in the A's series. We got a lot to talk about. Chase Utley, obviously, the Astros. But let's start with the A's. Dodgers go 0-2. The first of a bad week, right? You have to beat bad teams, period.
Yeah, and they are indeed a bad team.
The A's.
Yes.
They're a terrible team. Clayton Kershaw gets a no decision on Tuesday. Alex Wood throws okay on Wednesday. Guys and gals, is Alex Wood doing well enough to keep in the rotation? Matt Latos wasn't.
I think the verdict's still out on Wood. I think he deserves another shot. Although Kershaw did hit the panic button officially today, so I don't know. Maybe you panic and you just get him out of the road. Maybe it's time for old boy to come up again. Bolsinger.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think first of all, I think it's way too early to say, oh, okay, Wood's not the answer. I say that you give him a few more outings. Now, I do understand that we're in crunch time. So it's not like, okay, you have a whole season to figure this out. I understand why Kershaw pushed the panic button or said the Dodgers should be in a state of panic. I understand that as well, but I also don't think that, there's someone should be one and done either. Now, if he goes out next time, gives up 8 runs, all earned, okay, then that's something to think about.
Two and done's cool.
2 and done, yeah. 1 and done is not good unless you have Calipari as your coach and you play for Kentucky. 1 and done is fine. Other than that, does not apply.
Well, I'm not ready to hit the panic button just yet, and I really like Alex Wood. He's different than Matt Latos, where Matt Latos is just, help down the stretch. Alex Wood really has a place on this team for the long run and in the future. And I think that with some work with Rick Honeycutt, he could really be, part of the Dodgers rotation for years to come. So I'm actually really excited to see Alex Wood as a Dodger, not only in this, last few weeks of the season, but for the long haul.
And he's a guy, too. I agree with you, because he's a guy. We have to remember what we got here. 5 2/3, 6 innings, 3 runs. Sounds like a pretty good 5th starter. Mike Bolsinger did that quite a bit. And so, come crunch time, come playoff time, do the Dodgers need pitching help? 100%. We'll get into that, specifically in the bullpen, but also the rotation a little bit. But for what Alex Wood is and who he is, if Kershaw and Greinke are your 1-2, Alex Wood's not a not a bad back end rotation option. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate that, and I think this is the bigger issue for him and for Kershaw, both their starts in Oakland. Wood giving up 3 runs, that game is almost unwinnable because the Dodgers don't hit on the road again. And go ahead.
No, continue your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, this is something we've seen all year. We sound like a broken record doing this every week. You're looking at me like I've already written about this 1,000 times. But this is a problem. We know it's a problem. We can debate in a second if Chase Utley's going to help that. But how do you go from here with starting pitchers? I find it difficult to criticize starters when you get 1 and 2 runs a game on the road. There's no margin for error.
Mm-hmm. And, it's interesting because, the Dodgers are actually in the NL West, which includes other teams such as the Rockies and the Padres, but they actually have the worst road record out of any team in the NL West. And, and their road record is not catastrophic. It's not like on the road right now that like they're 10 and 40, I think they're a respectable 25 and 35 or 36, something like that. But, if you look at everyone else, they're getting it done on the road, and we've always said that that's going to be their Achilles heel, especially leading in to the postseason, is winning these home games, especially against teams that are winnable and at the last of their division, that are gimme wins. And we talked about that before. We know they struggle with teams that are above 500. So when you struggle with those kind of teams, you beat the teams that you know you can beat. So I really don't know what to say about that. I mean, especially when you do have both your aces who did go down this week. And when I say go down, no decision, loss, it's it's just something that can't happen, especially if we want to finish strong. We know who's behind us in the division. We know how far they're back, and we know what can happen, for the duration of the season. So.
Thanks for clarifying that, because somebody tuning in who might not have seen the game today, and
you
said go down, they're panicking. They're like Kershaw, like, what?
I had to look this up. The Rockies have a worse road record. Rockies are 22 and 37 on the road, but the Dodgers are 25 and now 36 after today's loss. The Giants are 31 and 33. Arizona and San Diego both right around 500 too. We talk about this a lot on the show. You've seen this, Stacey, and you see this every day. You just tread water on the road and then come home and dominate. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers do the second part pretty well. They're not doing the first part anymore.
Well, 11 games under 500 on the road is not acceptable.
It's terrible.
It's really bad. So, and the thing is, last year, they were one of the best teams on the road. And in 2013, they were one of the best teams on the road. So, in order to, go all the way and be a world champion, you have to be able to win on the road. And this year, they've just completely done a 180. And they're playing well at home. They've only lost, I think, 20 games at home. But the road record is just unacceptable.
You almost wonder if it's like, when they're in other stadiums, I know obviously sometimes high altitude or wind or, there's certain factors or variables that can play into, not being able to hit the ball with velocity, not be able to, to do the things that you're used to doing on your home field stadium. Do you think that that's kind of the issue with them, is just, weather conditions or just things that they're not used to on the road? Or is it just the simple fact that they're just not getting it done?
They're not getting it done. It's a veteran team. If it were a young team, if it were a bunch of young guys, if there were a ton of Jock Petersons out there, I'd say, okay, you're rebuilding or whatever. You're not used to playing on the road in the major leagues. And that's true of younger clubs. But this is such a veteran team. You have so many guys who've done this before. So many guys who were part of last year's team who was good on the road. Yeah. You can't. I think it could be, in one way, this is baseball. Weird things happen, funny things happen. But over the course of a season, it's beyond funny. This isn't a small sample size. They've played 60 games on the road. It's too much. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I'm not a fire Don Mattingly guy. I know those people exist, but at some point you need to start looking at what do you change? What do you actually change here? Because you're not going to say, okay, let's change the rotation top to bottom. You're not going to change the lineup top to bottom. What has to change?
Well, that also goes with, back to you don't expect, like I said earlier, you don't expect your aces to go down. I know I spoke about the game today, but anyways, who cares? But at the end of the day, that's not, as a manager, it's your job to manage a team and put the best players in whichever game it is in order for them to win. And I think that if I look at Mattingly, the lone exception would be some of the new people that are Woods and some of these new guys that are coming in. You're like, okay, maybe do we bring up Bolsinger or somebody else? Like certain situations like that. But ultimately, when I look and I see who he has out there, and I was managing the game, I don't think he's been horrendous. I think a lot of those people, those fire Mattingly people, are just angry that things aren't panning out the way that they envision. But at the end of the day, you're still number one atop your division. As a manager, that's all you can ask them to do. But that does not say that we can't push the panic button.
Barely at the top of the division, and I am full-fledged hitting the panic button. It is panic time. If the Giants win tonight, they're going to be a half game back. And I was kind of expecting the Cubs to fade, so maybe you have a chance in a wild card scenario if the Giants do come back, big brother. But they are not fading, the Cubs. And so guess what? It looks like if you're second in the NL West, you're golfing early, And that's they seem to have this big brother syndrome, seriously, with the Giants, where the Giants still haven't really, they had a good stretch early in the season, but have they played their best baseball yet? And you almost think like that's on the horizon, and they're a team that plays their best baseball when their best baseball is needs to be played at the end of the season, and the Dodgers are playing their worst right now, right when you can't. And so there's somewhat of, they really, the Giants, I'm nervous.
And Mike Leake, not that he's the world beater himself, but a guy like that just came back for the Giants.
Right.
So you're pushing panic button. Were you pushing it after Oakland or the week as a whole? Houston too.
The week as a whole. I mean, you're going to have some blips, but you can't. Then when your studs come around, and you have these guys on your team, and they're supposed to be the streak stoppers, and you can't get any runs, what they're going to have to do, and this is what happens when the bats don't get going, you got to stop playing more small ball. And they're not running it all this year, the Dodgers. I don't know what they were last year, but it seemed to me they stole a lot more bases last year. They're like last in the NL in steals this year. They got to stop the runners, do something to try and jumpstart this offense, because guys they were relying on to be the consistent guys like Turner and Gonzalez this year, those guys aren't hitting the past week or two, And it's
well, they did have a stolen base today. Yasiel Puig stole his 25th career base.
Nice.
But the roster's just not constructed that way like last year. They lost D. Gordon.
Yeah,
who
true.
Stole,
who's leading the league. I think the NL in hitting right now.
There's the answer right there.
But the roster's just not constructed that way anymore. So, when you say they need to do more small ball, it's just this is not how that lineup works. They've been more dependent on home runs and setting the table for Adrian Gonzalez, but they're just not hitting consistently well, regardless of base run. I mean, the base running is atrocious. Let's be honest here. They not only have they not stolen any bases, but they're making errors on the base path. And that's one of the reasons why Lorenzo Bundy was let go and Ron Renicky was brought in for a third base coach, because and today we even saw poor base running, and they're getting thrown out on the base paths, and that could have been a run that could have won the game for them. But it's they have to be able to be more smart on the base path and not necessarily steal more bases, because they're just not good at that.
The only guy I want to see move, the only guy I want to see steal bases is Jock. The 30-30 season in AAA, especially when you're struggling like he is. And I know this is small ball National League, and most teams don't play like this anymore, but lay down a bunt, steal a base. He's got the tools to do it. Asking Justin Turner to do it, absolutely not. Enrique Hernandez, probably not. But Jock, to me, is a 30-30 guy coming out of Albuquerque. I'm looking at him after last year saying, holy crap, 30-30 in the bigs, that's optimistic right away, but this is the skill set. He's got, how many stolen bases does he have this year? A handful. So that's the one guy I'd like to see move. But I agree with you. And this is a home run hitting team. They do it well. They're first in the National League. But when you don't do it so well, and then when you also can't get any runs and you leave guys on base, everything magnifies itself and you lose a lot of 2-1 games like we've been seeing. My question for you guys, because I'm glad you brought this up, Stacy, Ron Rennecke's the new third base coach. Ron Rennecke earlier this year was managing the Brewers. Got fired. Brewers are terrible. Was he brought in to put pressure on Don Mattingly?
I don't think so. No. I don't think that Ron Rennecke is, a manager in training or the next manager. I think he was brought in primarily to work on the base running. And Bundy just wasn't getting it done. I'm surprised, Bundy even started the year off as third base coach after the NLDS with the big base running mistake by Andre Ethier last year in the NLDS.
Yeah.
That was huge. And I think Rennecke was brought in to work on the base running. And I don't think that he's going to be the next manager of the Dodgers. I think if anything, it would be, someone else that, Andrew Friedman has in mind. And as far as the fire Don Mattingly sentiment, it's really prevalent, and I've seen it for years. And I think that the front office really supports Mattingly. But I do think that now, as we get to down the stretch and with the struggles right now, I wouldn't be surprised if after the season, if the Dodgers, don't get to the World Series, that they bring in someone else. I'm finally getting to that point where I could see that happening.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, so realistically, I guess this is a question for anyone. Realistically, who can you see succeeding Mattingly at that?
A guy I like a lot, and he's available, is Bud Black. I like Bud Black a lot. The Padres shouldn't have dumped him. He's a good manager. He'll get a job real quick this offseason if he's looking. I think Bud Black's a good candidate. And he knows the NL West real well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good call.
Yeah, I mean, he comes from within the division, so obviously he knows a lot. But
and that's premature. I mean, obviously Mattingly's the manager of a first place team.
I know.
At least
You don't fire first place team manager.
I think at the end of the day, it just goes down to the expectation that they have, that we have for the Dodgers. Obviously, there is a high expectation. And, like certain teams, you'll hear them say, other sports, it's Super Bowl or bust. I think same thing here with the Dodgers. It's World Series or bust. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing. And you saw, obviously we have, in the last 6 years, I think we've been to 3 NLCSs, 2 with Torrey in, I think, 08 and 09. And then we went again in we haven't been since then, I think. So, with that being said, I mean, it's been a long time, and I know that everyone is sick of waiting. I know that we have one of the highest payrolls and all the basically in the
in the history of professional sports. Let's be honest.
Wow,
yeah,
that says a lot.
You saw the tweet the other day. I think I sent it to you guys. It's the most expensive team payroll
to
ever be no hit. So I think anytime you have a payroll that high, there are expectations.
Exactly.
And you look at Greinke, who's probably going to opt out this winter. And you look at him and Kershaw in their primes, Adrian Gonzalez still in his prime, having a really quiet, nice year. There's so many other things we focus on. Gonzalez is doing what he does.
He's consistent.
And other guys like Turner having really nice years and developing, and Peterson coming into his own. And you look at all these guys, and you got to say the time is now. And if the time is not now because of the extraneous pieces, the bullpen, the 4th and 5th starter, that makes it worse.
Yeah.
You put all the expensive pieces together. You have the core. They've got a core, best 10 players, however you want to define it, that can go up against anybody in the league. And if the extraneous pieces don't make it happen because the 4th and 5th starter just pitches not well enough, the bullpen caves again and again and again, that makes it all the more painful to me. You got so close, spent what, $300 million? Nothing. You know?
Exactly. That's why I said World Series or bust. You spend that kind of money, you not just World Series ring or bust, And then also you have to look at it as what was the point I was going to make? But anyways, I was going to say something.
It's too bad. It was going to be a good one.
It was going to be good too.
I could see it in your eyes.
Fire.
Hold on to it. I got something that's more. I got something that's more fire for you guys. Mike Fires. Thank you for that.
Wow.
Nice.
Let's talk no hitter.
Let
me ask you guys first, because anytime you throw no hitter, I say, you know what? Cool. You almost throw fandom out the window for one game. It's a cool thing to see. Painful, but it's cool to see. The glove controversy. he have anything on his glove? Because Twitter thinks so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of people think so. And that was kind of the talk within 24 hours. He couldn't even really appreciate his no-hitter without the allegations coming out literally, several hours after that. I don't know. I don't know. I looked at some of the pictures they put up, and it's just one of those things. It could be the media just stirring it up. I don't know. And also you have to think, how much would have that aided him in throwing the no-hitter as well? How much did it actually play a significant role or part?
It didn't. And
yeah.
I don't care about it.
It's not like he's deflating footballs out there and, making it easier
and
to
there
grip or
wasn't
throw
any strange movement on his pitches.
Well, yeah.
He just had a special night. You got to tip your cap to Mike Fiers. And, he just had an amazing curveball that night. He was working that high fastball, keeping the hitters off balance, and the Dodgers are already in this slump, and it was just his night, and it was painful and hard to watch being a Dodger fan, but Mike Fiers, great job.
And listen, people say there is no such thing as a steroid era. Every era is a steroid era. There's always a way to cheat. There's always a way for performance-enhancing drugs, whether it was greenies in the 50s or amphetamines in the 70s or whatever. This will always happen. This is another one of those things. If he has something in his glove, if he has a foreign substance, and players are open about this. They say if you don't make it obvious, our guys do it. We know our guys do it. Your guys can do it too. If you don't make it obvious and if you're not stupid about it. If it's obvious, the umps are going to get you.
Oh, yeah.
So Mike Fiers to me isn't different than anybody else who does any of this stuff and can hide it. And a picture, an image on TV got it or whatever, and it was a no-hitter, so the intensity's ramped up.
Of course.
And whatnot.
Of
but
course.
This has been going on for years. It's going to keep going on for years.
What's his face? I got busted last year with the tarp. Was it Pineda?
Pineda.
Yeah. But he was dumb. It was like all over the place.
And that's the thing. And when you do that kind of stuff and it's obvious, or when every ball is scuffed up, then you got to have a conversation. Umps have to realize it. But everybody's pitchers are doing this, And I'm not saying, hey, Clayton Kershaw's doing it too. I don't mean that. But there are guys on the Dodgers who are using substances. There's guys on every team that's using substances. So to me, it's kind of a non-story. It's just sort of coincidental that it happened during a no-hitter.
It is. And, like you said, because of the no-hitter, it's going to be elevated and intensified a whole lot more had it just been a normal game that he had lost, But I think at the end of the day, kind of like Stacey said, I don't think it affected anything. I mean, you saw the way he was pitching. I was going to say the Dodgers were hitting. Obviously, it's a no-hitter, but, they and it was one of those things like in order to get a no-hitter or perfect game, you need just a lot of things to go your way. For obvious reasons. And I think it was just one of those games where a lot of things just went his way. I don't think that him cheating or anything of that.
And there were some great defensive plays behind him, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always are on no-hitters. You have to have it. 27 outs is too hard. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
So you say, hey, wipe the slate clean, Dodgers. Come up Saturday, try to win a game. Didn't happen. Lost this Saturday, and then today. Today's is probably the most painful. Saturday, to me, Zach Greinke threw pretty well. Give up 3 runs, get beat. That happens. You're not going to go unbeaten down the stretch. And, Stacey, this is something we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, and I'm glad you're here for this. We sort of noticed when Greinke and Kershaw both went through scoreless streaks in, feels like forever ago, but July, early August. All of us were kind of like, you know what? This is a nice time to do it because they're not going to get cold then right before the playoffs. Get cold at the end of August, find your way again in the ebb and flow by the end of September and get cranking up again. This is that cold stretch. If this is cold for Greinke, if losing a game, giving up 3 runs in 7 innings is cold, I will take it all day. Last week or whatever was it the Reds? He gave up 6 runs, got a win, or the Phillies gave up 7 runs, got a win. This might be the cold stretch. Take it, and 3 weeks from now, we'll see if he's not giving up a run in 8 innings every start again.
Well, I was going to say...
Might be over in 3 weeks. Might be over.
We don't listen to that. But yeah, if it is a cold stretch, right now, this is the perfect time up into this week to have a cold stretch. You don't want to go in any later than post 3 weeks and have a cold stretch. If you're gonna have the jitters, if you're not going to hit, literally... right now is the time to do it because from here on out, especially not just to control, control their position in the NL West, but you don't need that cold momentum going into the playoffs either.
Well, I don't think there's anything cold about Greinke and Kershaw this season.
Yeah.
And Kershaw pitched another gem today. I mean, he only allowed 1 run on 7 hits, no walks. 10 strikeouts. You can't ask for anything better. And yeah, Greinke, wasn't his usual self the prior game, but they've just been extraordinary this season. And I think if anything is cold, it's the offense.
Yeah.
No question. And I do think the bats will come out of it, so it is a slump, and I think, slumps end. The slump I'm more worried about is the bullpen slump.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If somebody's going to actually, take a step forward and be like, and say, you can trust me, It's not only Kenley Jansen, but a guy I thought maybe in recent weeks that was gonna take a step forward is Pedro Baez, but then he kind of gets hit around this week, and I just felt so bad for Kershaw on that first start this week because he pitched like 116 pitches or whatever, and it's like he's got to go to 130 to nail it down for him. I mean, his personal catcher AJ hits that 3-run bomb, looks like things are gonna go, but then a meltdown,
just
out
a
of
collapse,
the pen again.
And a meltdown immediately.
Yeah.
Not even an inning later.
Right.
Immediately,
literally
after
the same
Kershaw
inning.
comes out.
Yeah.
It's those things are tough. I think for the Houston one, I think the biggest takeaway for me with Houston is the Astros are damn good. The Astros are a really good team. Scott Kazmir pitched his face off against Greinke. That's a good pitcher. You got to give him a little credit too. And Fires, obviously. But the thing to me, the interesting takeaway with the Houston series specifically is Houston and LA are two teams diametrically opposed in how they were created. Los Angeles buys everybody, $300 million payroll. Houston went through 110 losses for 3 straight years in a fourth season with like 96. They went through hell before this year. Early last year, they were kind of getting there, but they went through hell before this year. They've got all those young guys. They've got more young guys coming. Carlos Correa's going to be a name. He's a Giancarlo Stanton type of name coming up. A young guy who's going to take over the league in the next couple of years. He's a Mike Trout kind of name, those kind of people. Houston's impressive, and you run into a buzzsaw, and that happens sometimes. It's unfortunate for the Dodgers because it seems like every buzzsaw you run into, you get beat by. They're not good against teams over 500.
Yeah.
That has to change. It's going to change this week against the Cubs, or they're going to be in real trouble.
Oh, yeah.
But let's talk bullpen. Now that we got Houston and Oakland out of the way, which Dodgers bullpen arm do you guys want to kill first?
You know my answer. You know my answer.
I mean,
Man,
that's a
brutal question.
A little hyperbolic. But seriously, Jim Johnson's still hanging around.
He's terrible.
Luis Avalon didn't do much this week. Chris Hatcher gave up the one in the bottom of the 10th today. Kenley Jansen blew a save. Uncharacteristic of him.
Yeah.
I think we'd probably keep him around.
Yeah,
You're going to blow a save
he's
or
definitely
two.
not on the chopping block.
But Juan Nicasio on the DL, that's actually a big loss. I never thought in my life, coming from the Rockies, that I would say that Juan Nicasio on the DL is a big loss. But he's had a good season in middle relief, and they need him.
He really has, Nicasio. Yeah, that was a big loss. You know what? As far as the bullpen, it's not all doom and gloom. Because if you look at the bullpen, the peripherals are really good. They strike out a lot of batters. They don't walk anybody, okay? But they're just allowing a lot of home runs, and there are a lot of runs in key situations where you have to hold the game or preserve a tie, and they're not getting that done. I thought Pedro Baez would be, a possible setup man for Kenley, and I think he still could be, or Yimi Garcia.
I like Yimi a lot.
I do like Yimi, and since he's been back, he's looked better from his early struggles. Because at the beginning of the season, he was lights out. He was fantastic, and Baez, he has that potential too. Chris Hatcher has been pretty disappointing in my opinion. He was one of the first pickups by Friedman, and he just hasn't been the guy that we all expected. Jim Johnson has struggled since he came over, but I don't think that's going to continue. Johnson, wasn't that bad before he came to the Dodgers, so that can't possibly continue.
I can't get lower on Jim Johnson
really?
than I am. Oh, we talked about right when they made that move a couple weeks ago. We talked about it. I was like, you guys don't understand. This guy understands coming out of the AL East. Jim Johnson to me was a terrible move. I have no late inning faith in him. I'd rather see Nicasio throw the eighth when he's healthy. I'd rather see Peralta throw the eighth than Jim Johnson.
Wow.
JP Howell's fading a little bit. He had a great first half of the year.
That's the same thing happened last year.
Yeah, and fading at the end. And the thing to me with a lot of these guys, you notice it every game, a lot of inherited runners scored. They don't strand other people's runners. So JP Howell will come in and throw 2/3 of an inning, but give up a couple hits and not allow his own, but he's allowing Kershaw's or allowing somebody else's. That's another huge thing in the bullpen to me, but these guys, I look down the list and it's like, who do you trust? You got to trust Jansen. You're going to blow a save or two.
He's not perfect, contrary to popular belief.
Besides that, it's I don't know. It's interesting you don't think it's all doom and gloom, because I'm ready to just set the whole thing on fire.
Yeah, there is hope, I think, and I think that I think Bolsinger would have been great out of the pen, and I'm not sure why they didn't use him in that respect. His curveball could have been really useful in those late innings, and I expect him back in September. But the bullpen has been totally inconsistent and unreliable, and even Kenley Jansen has had some blips on the radar. But you can't expect perfection from Kenley Jansen. Like today, it was pretty upsetting, but he's only blown 2 saves all year. He's one of the best relievers in the game. So you can't really blame it on him altogether. But just as a whole, the bullpen has been really disappointing. And, I think even Kershaw and Greinke, from what I've read, were kind of upset that the front office didn't do more to bolster the bullpen behind them.
Yeah. Well, I guess first of all, to answer your question, which one of them do we fire or,
you can be harsh.
Put a hole in. I think JJ is pretty much unanimous, and that'd be my vote as well. But I was also going to say in regards to, Jansen and a lot of times just, I guess, having this expectation that he, like we said last week, he's Mr. Reliable. My thing is, okay, yes, I understand. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to blow a few, it happens. But when you go through a week where you win 0 games, I mean, these are just the ones you cannot blow. Like, not to say that it's okay to blow another game. You can't really blow any, but especially when you are going through a week where you get nothing and you're barely holding on to something, right now is not the time to blow anything. So I don't give anybody, at this point in time, I'm not giving anybody flack or, it's do your job. This is not the time to blow saves. So I understand no one's perfect, but you're going to have to be perfect right now in the state that we're in.
Do your job. I like that.
So you were full on panic mode too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this last week was really disheartening. Now, and I say that more for Oakland. Houston, they're a great team. I mean, I wasn't expecting them to get no hit against Houston. Obviously, that was in its own. But you didn't expect Oakland to go down, and you didn't expect them to go down to Oakland. And the thing is, those are the games that you have to win, especially looking ahead. You have Chicago, and other teams that are above 500 that we have historically struggled over, at least as far as the season is concerned. And that's why I'm saying push panic button, is because we're a game and a half ahead of the Giants. We know what they can do. We saw them last year when they got hot. 2 months left in the season, got extremely hot, and we know what they're capable of doing when it's this, when it's baseball that matters, when it's time to be, when it's crunch time. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I am relaxed and it's time to get complacent. We'll see. But the panic button is getting close to being pushed.
And the Giants have their own issues too.
Yeah.
Their bench is weak. Their rotation is, not that great. So they could definitely,
it's deep, though.
Their pen is good.
Deep.
Their pen, yes, they have a much better bullpen. But I think they always have that black magic, and they somehow get this surging, wins towards the end of the season, and I could totally see that happening. And there's still 7 head-to-head games between the Dodgers and the Giants, and the Dodgers have not played the Giants well this year. So I think those 7 games are going to be really key. Oh, yeah. And if they do drop the next series to the Giants, I might start hitting that panic button, but I'm not quite there yet.
And the way Bumgarner has been hitting recently too is nothing to be frowned upon, especially when we know we have to face them. So
I want to see a him versus Greinke home run contest. You know.
Greinke wins on the bat flip, though.
Yeah, he did. That was pretty sweet. That was pretty sweet.
It's there's a lot wrong in Dodger Nation when you get to Chase Utley in the last 10 minutes of the show.
Ooh.
Chase Utley's a Dodger now. Let's cover him for a minute or two. I don't like the move. Stacey, you and I have talked about this on Twitter. What do you think? Good move. You give up Darnell Sweeney, pretty good prospect, and John Ritchie, a minor league pitcher. Do you like bringing Chase Utley in?
Yes, I do. And, I liked Darnell Sweeney. I just don't think that the Dodgers had a position for him or a place for him. And he actually hit a home run in his first at-bat, I think, for the Phillies, which is...
Phillies are stockpiling young players.
Yeah, they're
which
rebuilding.
Which really should be doing.
They're rebuilding, yeah.
But Chase Utley,
But as far as Chase Utley, I'm fine with him with Kendrick's hamstring injury, which, hamstrings can be tricky.
Yeah.
It's really good to have Chase Utley down the stretch. He's a veteran, along with Jimmy Rollins. If you told me
that old Phillies team back.
if you told me in 2008 that Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley would be on the Dodgers, I would have called you crazy. But I'm okay with it. Actually Utley's been hitting. He had a couple big hits for the Dodgers so far, and once Kendrick comes back, he's going to be back into the starting second baseman role, and they're talking about Utley playing some third base, and I'm fine with that.
Ooh, I will disagree up and down with you. I mean, I like Utley a lot. I like him as a player. He's smart. He's a good playoff guy, but you got to get there first, and I think to get there you needed to revamp the bullpen again. You had more pressing issues in Utley. My big thing is, and I know you agree with me on this, I'm an Enrique fan. I love Enrique Hernandez. I think for a couple weeks he would have been a fine second baseman. I know they want to put him in center for Jock, and they kind of want him to be a utility guy. Now, the Dodgers probably know a couple things that we don't, I'm thinking. And maybe they know that Howie's hamstring injury might take a little longer to come back.
Yeah, it's a little more severe.
So if it's a 15-day DL, I'm like, hey, 2-3 weeks, let's let Enrique play. If it's going to be longer, if we come to mid-September and Howie's still not back, I will like this Utley move more. But in the meantime, for me, it's like crunch time's coming up. September 1 is literally next week. It's time to figure out the pitching, and that's where the focus should have been.
Well, the thing is, the two situations are not really correlated. I saw
you can do both,
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, who are they going to get? There was no one to get.
Hey, Edwin Jackson was on DFA waivers.
We've already done that, and we don't want to go back.
Those are the kind of guys. I mean, Fernando Rodney. That was another Twitter question. Do you go get Fernando Rodney? There's not a lot out there.
There's not. So, that's why everyone was angry over the Utley move, because they didn't do much for the bullpen. But, who are they going to get? There was no one.
The only thing I wonder about, and we're not privy to this because it's private to teams, but who cleared waivers? Whose relievers cleared waivers this month? Right. We know that a lot of guys cleared waivers on a bunch of teams.
Yeah.
Did any relievers do it? We heard the Padres pulled back starters. Whose relievers made it through? And could the Dodgers have worked out a deal? And there's a few days left. Could still work out a deal. Probably not going to happen. This is probably who you go down the stretch with. A couple quick questions to end with you guys. And so I guess that's the first one. As the Dodgers go down the stretch in the last month, things will even out. They're not going to go 0-5 every week the next 4 weeks. Do you like the team they have, or are they in big trouble?
They're in big trouble. I mean, until somebody steps up in that pen and can secure leads that are handed to them by the stud starters, you have. If you're not going to win the Greinke and Kershaw games, you're in for a long 5 weeks here. And like you said, there isn't really anything out there, nobody's getting rid of relievers at this point in the season. But maybe you start looking at some of your young stud starters and start grooming them into that 7th and 8th inning roles. Maybe you see a Urias, maybe you see a Lee or somebody come up and start pitching out of the pen, in high leverage situations. The Cardinals do that with their young studs. That's how they kind of groom them. It might be time for the Dodgers to take a look at that.
Rockies just designated Rafael Betancourt veteran reliever for assignment today. That's the kind of guy the Dodgers would have to make a run at. And he's been terrible, and he's 40 years old. So have fun with that.
Wow. Well, you know what I was going to say, just kind of on top of your question, as far as do we like the team today? Are we content? Now, I was going to say this. Bullpen aside, all right? I want to ask the same question. Bullpen aside, are you still content with the team that we have? And it's not necessarily to you. This can be to anybody.
Rotation and offense, more or less, yeah. There's holes. Jock's been struggling. Team doesn't hit on the road, generally speaking. Can't ask for a better overall rotation because 1 and 2 have been so good.
Yeah,
but you do want a better, 3, 4, 5, whatever. But at that point, you just wonder if you're getting greedy.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you can't have the perfect scenario.
You can always get better. You can always get better.
That's true, and that's a good way. And no, the reason why I asked that question is because I understand, the bullpen is the big issue. I know that's been the emphasis pretty much of this show, and obviously this last week the offense was atrocious as well. But looking around outside of the bullpen, there's really not a lot to really argue about or be upset about. Like you just said, we have the best 1 and 2 tandem punch in the game, and offensively, yes, there's been a few. There's been some inconsistency, but overall, a lot of the guys have been pretty consistent or solid when called on. So the reason I said that is because yes, Stacey, you're correct. There's always room to improve. There's always things to get better on. That goes without saying. But realistically speaking, at this point in the season, as far as the fact that we cannot acquire I'm not going to say we can't acquire. It all depends on waivers and things of that sort. But looking ahead, outside of the bullpen, I don't think there's a whole lot to be super on pins and needles about, or to push the panic button about. And even with the bullpen, I like your idea, Mike. Some of these young studs that just have to come in and do a 7th inning or do an 8th, or even just a batter, come in and face a batter and do, if it comes down to them doing their jobs, then I think that will kind of alleviate the bullpen issues to begin with. But yeah, it's definitely crunch time. So
rosters expand September 1, obviously, so you may see a few more relievers come up, and you may get a little bit of pressure off the pen right now, although they're not necessarily overworked, they're just ineffective.
That's a good point.
Other question for you guys very briefly at the end here. We got a couple minutes left because it's been asked on Twitter to me a couple times. Do you like the playoff format? Do you wish it were smaller, larger? Do you like the extra wild card? I guess we'll see how it does this year, but what do you guys think of the extra wild card?
I like the extra wild card. I wish maybe it was a 2 out of 3 series instead of just one game. It's just like, all the marbles to bank on one game. It's kind of tough.
I actually like the sudden death kind of thing. It's a wild card. It shouldn't be a 7-game or 5-game series. I mean, even best of 3 is still. I don't know. I like the one game. It's just done. Get it over with. On to the next one. But
I'm a traditionalist. I don't even like the wild cards at all. I got to be honest.
Are you traditionalist? Like best record in the league goes to the World Series, or are you okay with the division?
Yes,
wow.
If that was my choice.
What? Seriously?
I'd like that. I think that all that work, through the whole season, the long grind of the season should get rewarded, and you shouldn't have to put everything on the line on a one game.
I agree with you on that. You are not going to like my answer to this, though. I want 8 teams from both leagues. Oh, wow. I want the NBA. This is what they're going to. This is what's going to happen. But I want the NBA, NHL. We talked about this. The 8-team in both leagues, the 16-team playoff. Going to have to shorten the season a little bit to do that. Maybe do the first ones a best of 3, whatever. But to me, baseball more than any other sport. If you finish 500 in baseball, the success level is different. You finish 500, you did okay. The Twins are 500. They're okay. The Diamondbacks are 500. We're like, hey, where'd they come from? They're not bad. So you finish 500, you're doing okay. And I think in a 3 or 5 game series, it's anybody's game with a 500 ball club and maybe a very good one. It's the opposite of what you want. You want to reward the good teams, which is valid. I just think it'd be exciting as hell to see 16 teams in the postseason. I think in about another decade we'll get there. It's not going to happen right away, but I think that's probably what baseball is leaning to. Look at basketball. Look at how long playoffs are in basketball, how much success they have.
Well, it's funny because they're getting ready to extend basketball's playoffs too from 8 games. Not this season, but upcoming to, I think it's...
The World Series is already going to be in November this year. How much are they going to push it back?
You'd have to shorten the season.
Exactly. It can't be 100. You're going to have to shorten it easily to, I don't know.
145.
Yeah, 140. something like that.
Which is bad. I do like the 162, and you have all these records in the history of baseball that are based on 162 and 154, the famous Maris Ruth home run situation. So if you shorten it to 145, you do mess up a lot of records. The 200 hit milestone is going to get messed up at 145. There's a bunch of things like that. So that is true. 20-win pitcher seasons are going to get messed up at 145. So there is that to think about. That's tough. Now you got me. Now you have me second guessing myself.
I know,
That's
right?
not a good thing.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's true too. It works. Postseason baseball works. That's it for us this week on the show, guys. Before we leave, you guys can find Stacy on DodgersNation.com. She is also on YouTube.com/DishingUpTheDodgers. Her channel, following the Dodgers, obviously. Stacy, Twitter and stuff. Where else can folks reach out to you?
At Organically Rude on Twitter and Instagram.
I like that. Organically Rude.
That is nice. Well,
Don't invite somebody on your show with the name Organically Rude. They're going to be mean to you. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I am organically nice, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HeyKevinJohn, or here discussing Dodgers baseball every Sunday.
Mike doesn't have a Twitter.
I wonder what's taking so long, Mike.
Hey.
What's
Just do it.
Keeping it real.
You're a sports guy. Do it. It's great on Twitter. Sports on Twitter, phenomenal.
Mike said he will get a Twitter the
Twitter
next
is
time
so
the Red Sox
fun.
win a World Series.
Yeah.
So that'll be never.
Done.
All right.
Oh.
I'll follow you.
There
You got one follower already.
You get I will not follow you. I'm on Twitter at Bobby DeMuro. Since he doesn't have one, instead of following him, go follow AfterBuzz at AfterBuzz TV on Twitter, every other social network. We'll be back next week. More Dodger stuff. Stacy, thank you for sitting in. This
Stacey,
was
you
fun.
rock.
you.
Thank you
Nice
so
to have
much.
somebody who actually knows the Dodgers here with us, fellas. That's it this week on the show. We'll see you next week on Dodgers Wrap 360.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.